On a hot afternoon in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré looked at the file on his desk. The presidential palace was empty. Most of the staff had left for the day, leaving the young leader to think and carry the weight of the nation on his shoulders. The file had been found just hours before, during a routine renovation of the National Treasury Room. Workers had found a sealed metal box with documents that were never meant to be forgotten behind a panel that hadn't been opened in decades. "Mr. President," his aide had said nervously when delivering the box, "you should see this right away." Now, as the ceiling fan rotated lazily above, casting alternating shadows across the antique wooden desk, Traoré carefully examined the contents. The most significant item was a detailed map of Burkina Faso, but unlike any official map in circulation, this one showed extensive gold deposits across the country's northern regions, deposits never documented in any government record, never included in any official survey, never disclosed to international mining companies or financial institutions. In the margins of the map, handwritten notes from former President Thomas Sankara, assassinated in 1987, sent a chill down Traoré's spine. "This is our true power. Show no one their knowledge of this would be the end of our freedom. When the time is right, when a leader of courage emerges, this will be Burkina Faso's path to true independence." Traoré rubbed his tired eyes, trying to process the implications. If this map was correct, and Sankara was not one for exaggeration, Burkina Faso's gold reserves were at least 3 times larger than officially reported. This wasn't just a statistical discrepancy, it was a revelation that could transform one of the world's poorest nations into a regional economic power. With these resources, they could build schools, hospitals, infrastructure, they could pay off crippling international debts, they could break the cycle of dependency that had kept the country bound to foreign interests since independence. The door opened softly and Ouadraogo, his young economic advisor, entered with a stack of reports. Seeing the president's intense focus on the map, he approached cautiously. "Sir, I've brought the IMF assessment you requested, but I see you're occupied with something else." Traoré hesitated. In his 7 months as president, he had learned to be cautious about whom to trust. Western intelligence agencies had eyes and ears throughout the government, placed there during decades of neocolonial influence, but Ouadraogo had proven his loyalty, having turned down lucrative offers from French companies to serve his country. "Come look at this, Yakuba," Traoré said, gesturing his advisor closer. "Tell me what you see." Ouadraogo looked at the map, and as he understood what he was seeing, his face changed from interest to shock. "Mr. President," he said, is this true? It has Sankara's seal and name on it." He was many things, but he was never the type of person who would lie about something this important. Ouadraogo used his finger to follow the lines of the gold deposits. "We've been told that the Djibouti region and the Gurma Mountains areas don't have any resources and can't be reached because of safety worries." Traoré pointed out places where French special forces have been present in large numbers for years, ostensibly for counterterrorism activities. When the two men's eyes met for a moment, they both knew what was going on. "We need to check this information," Rayo finally said. "We need to look at these areas, take samples, and confirm what the map shows." Ray agreed and said, "We must keep this a secret at all costs." He didn't have to finish the sentence because it was already complete. They both knew what was at stake. Western countries had planned coups for a lot less money, put together a small team. Dr. Braza was told by people he would trust with his life that they needed a scientist who had nothing to do with Western mining interests. Ouadraogo suggested right away that he study in Russia and then return to Burkina Faso to serve the country, even though big companies offered him jobs there. He said that his loyalty was to Burkina Faso, not to foreign paychecks. "Good. We leave in 3 days. There will be no official motorcade and no security detail that could draw attention. We'll travel as civilians to the Djibouti region first," he said. Traoré looked at the map again. If what he saw was real, it would help him understand a lot about the troubled past of his country. Assassinations, coups, the constant presence of foreign troops, and the unfair mining contracts that international bankers forced them to sign during times of crisis. Sankara knew, so they killed him for it. After 3 days, before light broke over Ouagadougou, Traoré sneaked out of the presidential house through a service entrance. He was dressed like any other person, a plain shirt, jeans, and a cap pulled low over his face. Burkina was an unremarkable SUV with a heavy engine. Inside were Wedrao Dr. Zeta with his geology gear and two trusted military officers in civilian clothes. To Captain Sadu and Lieutenant Uya, all the plans are now complete. Mr. President Ouedraogo told them as they left the house, "We've made up a story that you're sick and needing a day off. Only the Prime Minister knows where you are." Traoré agreed, saying that the trip to Djibouti would take about 5 hours if we didn't stop at any checkpoints. "Dr. Zeta, are you sure you can do preliminary tests on site?" The geologist, a serious man in his 50s with gray hair and hands rough from work in the field, patted his equipment case and said, "I've brought portable X-ray fluorescent analyzers and sampling tools. We won't have lab-quality results, but I can confirm that gold reserves are there and give you a rough idea of how much gold is there." When going north, it was tense because they had to take side roads to avoid military checkpoints, especially those where French advisors might be. The scenery changed slowly from the capital's sprawling cities to Savannah and then to the dry, rocky northern provinces of Burkina Faso. For years, the Djibouti area had been called a security risk zone, supposedly because of the presence of extremist groups. International travel advisories warned people not to go, and even government officials rarely went there without a large military presence. But as Traoré drove through small villages, he saw not a hub of terrorism but communities struggling with poverty and neglect, with people trying to survive in harsh conditions with little help from the government. These villages see more French soldiers than they do government services. Captain Sadu said something glum as they went through a settlement where kids played in dirty yards and women carried water from faraway wells. By midday, they had reached the exact spot on Sanker's map. It was a plain, rocky area surrounded by low hills. To the untrained eye, it looked like any other Sahel landscape. Nothing about it suggested that it held one of Africa's biggest untapped gold reserves. "This is it," Dr. Zeta confirmed, looking at both the map and his GPS device to make sure. They parked in the shade of a rock formation and set up a small camp that looked like a geological survey team. This was common in West Africa, where resource exploration was common. Dr. Zeta started collecting soil and rock samples right away, while the others kept a watchful perimeter. As the sun started to go down, casting long shadows across the landscape, a dust cloud in the distance let them know that a vehicle was coming. Captain Sadu raised his binoculars and pointed out a local vehicle, an old pickup truck with 2 people inside. The tension eased a bit, but their hands stayed close to their concealed weapons. As the truck approached and stopped a respectful distance away, an elderly man with a wooden staff for support and a younger man who looked like his grandson got out. The old man spoke in Moor, the local language. Visitors are rare in these parts, especially important visitors who dress like regular men. Traoré looked around at his friends and wondered how the man could have recognized him even though he was wearing civilian clothes. He then stepped forward, thinking that being honest might be the best thing to do. "We are doing a geological survey," he said in the same language as the old man, who smiled and showed missing teeth. "The president of Burkina Faso does not go to Djibouti in secret for a routine survey." The man pointed to the ground and said, "You have come for what lies beneath, have you not? What has been hidden from your people for generations?" There was stunned silence in Tracy's group as the old man approached. He was surprisingly agile for his age, and he said, "My name is Badiono. I am a spiritual leader in this region during the French occupation. Come to our village. It is not safe to stay out in the open as night falls, and there are things you should know." Traoré chose to follow Badiono to his village, which was a group of traditional homes about 4 kilometers away. When they arrived, children ran up to their cars, curious about the strangers, while adults came out of their homes, sensing that this was not a normal visit. They were led to the village's central meeting place, where elders were already gathered as if expecting them, and were invited to sit in the place of honor. Normally, he would have had to hide his identity, but it was clear that these villagers already knew who he was. "How did you know who I am?" Traoré asked. Badiono smiled again, as Traoré asked him directly. Traoré knew the old man was well over 100 years old. Words in ways the French never understood. When a true son of the soil moves, the soil knows. At night, when the lanterns were lit and cast warm light over the gathering, Bateau told a story that had been told for generations by village elders. The French discovered gold here in 1953, he said. Their geologists found what they called the Mother Lode, a gold deposit so vast it would have made our country one of the richest in the region. But colonial powers don't make colonies rich. They take wealth and leave poverty. He talked about how the French colonial government had kept the discovery a state secret and planned to only announce and use it after making sure there were good controls in place to keep the money from giving independence movements a boost. But one of their geologists had a conscience and refused to help. Bateau talked about a man named Duval who had lived among us and taken a Burkina wife. He told our elders the truth and helped make maps that showed all the gold deposits in our country. When we got our independence in 1960, these maps were secretly given to the new government, but each leader was either corrupted or threatened to keep quiet. Only Thomas Sankara had planned to use this information to break free from neocolonial colonial control, but his plan was cut short by his death.